So Spica, historically occulted by the moon, giving it visibility and prominence to those of us who can see it with the naked eye. The alignment with gate 32 makes it the school, a place where we can learn the laws of change, continuity, again, what can endure. So this is the law of mutation that is part of what is being initiated now during our time-space reality. I like that phrasing because time is inextricably linked with space, and it forms the nature of our current reality or illusion of Maya, of whatever it happens to be. So Spica, you're really getting a sense of it being a place according to Ra, rather than just a light in the sky. And if I think about one of the things that leads me to remember or relate to this gate is its conservatism. It's part of this political stream that is about, you could say, the people on the red side, as far as we who are conservatives. Okay, so the Spica being about the school, it's in quarter by quarter, you can learn more about how Ra links these gates to a godhead, or the 16 godheads is another place of learning. And Minerva happens to be about learning. It is the school where we have laws to be learned and things to be taught, when it's all about the things that have to do with our tribal sustainment, our support, our education, as far as being able to transform one's circumstances in order to become something more for the benefit of the tribe. This is not an individual ego I trip, although it is part of the ego stream. It is about support and us, we who are part of our tribal nature, versus them out there. So it is conservative because it smells death, as in it smells failure, as in it smells what could be. And so Ra says, if you cannot teach the young, then the tribe indeed will perish and the species will become extinct. Minerva, I just wanted to make sure I was remembering the right term, the virgin goddess of warfare and crafts. Another word we can liken in this area of the wheel historically is Athena, goddess Athena, too, with her knowledge and being birthed out of the head of Zeus, fully formed, fully adult, you know, sword blazing, my mind says. Okay, so 32, Spica, duration, the gate of continuity. This is the only thing which endures is change. So it is a gate that is about change, fear of failure, the deep tribal fear of not having enough, not either being enough or having enough. So the fear of extinction. Why? Because we don't have enough in order to support our tribe, for us to be better than those we would compete with for resources or whatever the case may be. So the deepest fear of someone with a gate 32 happens to be lack of creativity, of genius, because creativity and genius are those things that allow us to move through the difficulties that life brings. This is where Spica is currently. And this is the star that initiated our awareness of the greater cycles. So it is a key to the greater cycles within the powers that be. If we look at Spica in 2000, we see gate 32, line 4, which we will go into. And Spica in 1900s was in 32, line 3. So this is the Spica family, those born with, particularly now we're talking about down into the framework of just fixed stars. This is your fixed star, your primary fixed star. If your north node on the unconscious body side is the 32. For me, that's not true. Mine's 28 up here. So for those of you, and I know I have a lot of them in my fractal family, because I have the north node personally as my perspective on the conscious personality side. Some of you I know have it on the body side. This is your family. This is your family because, fractally, as far as your incarnative journey, because we have the nodes moving every 18 years. And so we might have as many as 4 different generations of human beings alive with this commonality of their unconscious design north nodal imprinting. So the custodians of continuity through transition is what Ra describes you as. Your fears and awareness are signals of what is coming, that the old world ends in 2027. And the first thing you can think about, he says, quote, about now is, do you know anybody who has their north node in the 32nd gate in the 4th line? Because they really do belong to the Spica family. He said, I would imagine that every member of that family is going to have to deal with great dilemmas in the changing of the cycle, because the cycle is going to change. And it seems to me that the nodal Spica beings are those who are most deeply connected to the precession of the equinox and the movement of the cycles, unquote. So we see gate 32, line 4 reads, right is might, Jupiter exalts. Even in times of change, certain underlying principles endure. In other words, it's the instinct to maintain one's principles in times of change. We know that the body graph holds mirror gates. Yes, you remember that there are mirror gates within the body graph. So the 49 being the gate of principles. Here we can see the word principles showing up in the 32, mirror gate to the 49, in the 4th line, the most influential line. Saturn detriments, where Jupiter will establish right action in the larger social realm. Saturn's will lead to inner strength and endurance as long as it is not threatened from the outside. In other words, it is the instinct to maintain one's principles as long as one's security is not threatened. So this happens to be in alignment with the 32's themes of duration and failure and extinction and instinct we can see. This is indicating who belongs to the Spica family. These are beings who are part of the awareness principle of the transformational support mechanism that's going to bring about the cycle's mutation, because this is the key to this current age, 32 being one of those keys, part of the cross of Maya, as far as the keys to the cross of planning. So down here with those beings who were born in the 1900s with 32.3, we see lack of continuity. Mercury exalts. It reads indecision and persistent re-evaluation that only because of its basic intelligence manages to endure. In other words, it's indecision, lack of continuity in times of transformation. Jupiter detriments. An over-reliance on traditionally legitimized standards that in times of change can be totally out of step and suffer unexpected humiliation. Again, a lack of instinct in times of transformation, so lack of continuity. Remember, this is an awareness gate. So being aware to the principles of what is going to bring transformation, the potential awareness. It's a potential awareness gate. So the 9-centered being that emerged in 1781, part of this mutative shift, brought the new kind of human creature, these projector, as yesterday I remember talking to my husband saying, you know, we're really a different kind of species. He's a projector too. Yeah, we are different in that we were born for this era. Another question that came up that was asked of me is, I don't understand why projectors are born here and now when it seems like everything is against us. We were born for this time to be able to help the planet align, as in be aware of who the other is in order to help them rebirth into this new reality. It is a time that creates the capability of a human being projector to master a system of knowledge to know who the other is. So that is our primary focus. We're here to study, master, and guide, be the advisors who can guide. So we are a byproduct of this era in order to help people come through into this new space, time-space reality. So the byproduct of this mutation is not only projector, but all of us getting a leveling up, if you will, of our frequency, our genetic blueprint, imprinting, in that it's not just we added on 2 centers. It is everything, all 9 centers got an upgrade, whereas a couple of them split into their own center, their own functioning. So everything that we understand about this modern industrial evolution, us being born in the cross of planting our sovereign nature of being in the fertile soils of the mutation or the mutational way, the evolutionary way, this journey. And so the cross of the sleeping phoenix is part of our mutation. It is human beings. So this is a really interesting dynamic way of thinking. The way that human beings have learned how to mutate is to die out physically and have the new birth through us. So as far as our maturational phase as human creatures, you know how you've always heard me talk about how 50 is your full flowering, right? But physiologically, the body, particularly on the female side, we see the lowering of our hormones changing and the lowering of our fertility because we're done with childbearing and rearing for most of us. We're moving into, my mind says, the crone years, our wisdom years, where we can carry forth the knowledge, pass it on to the next generation. And we don't know what it's going to be like to wake up in 2027. What has been taking place is part of what we're all having to face and deal with. But when something truly changes, like the background frequency shifting, it's not just that you, me, everybody are having to step into this new reality, but it's also that everyone that it's being birthed through us physically is carrying a different background frequency genetically. So when it comes to our physical form, instead of passing on our genetics in the lineage down through the age and space of time, there is going to be something of the immortalizing of our own sovereign nature of being. So being your own hero in the grand story or the Maya scheme of things. Once something has been experienced, it does not have to be set down in stone in order for it to go on and on. What happens is every present reality that you bear witness to, that energetic availability of the consciousness frequency, because of the neutrino imprinting, it moves through you and goes beyond. So when we study dream rave analysis as an example, you have a being who has the capability of being a filter for the cosmic data stream on one side of the planet. And if there indeed happens to be somebody on the other side of the planet, Naraya knows the website. There's this website where you can actually put in your calculation what city you're in and see if there's people on the other side or not. There is the neutrino feed that's going through you, me, everybody, and it's imprinting beyond, not just beyond on the other side of the planet, but beyond, because it keeps going on and on and on. And that is part of the immortalization of this experiment of being consciousness in form. It continues on. A little bit of the red paint coming out up on the white car and vice versa, that kind of thing. So this old seven-centered world, even though it's dying, we are looking at everything coming to an end. In order for all of us to be alive on this planet, there had to be, this ancient outcome of the stars dying in order for us, because we are literally births of stars. We who are alive in this form have potentialized energetics availability of this consciousness data stream that had come before inside of our makeup, our physicality. So we are the ones, 32s, who know and see it so as far as the shifting. Because when it ends in 2027, and all of us who are in the Spica stellar family, particularly, again, the North Node body, that he says, Ross says that the 32 is going to quiver in that moment because Spica is in that 32nd gate. Is the change of the cycle going to be a failure? Is the species really going to die? He says it's an interesting way of looking at how people are grouped instead of looking at them in terms of Sun Earth. We know that that's the incarnation cross. It's part of our internal experience of our lived purpose, right? It's the internal process. So when we look at the nodal configuration, the nodal configuration in and of itself is a whole new way in which we can look at the way not just a being, but groups of being are influenced, because for about 3 months or so, that's how long that shifting takes place of the nodes, where everybody being born is born with those nodes, those same nodes. So as an example, design North Node in 32.3 and 32.4 in the 1940s. It was back in April and a little tiny bit of May. In 32.3 and 32.4, those beings who have the North Node was in 1958, November, and some of December. Design North Node in just 32.4, we're looking at 1977, June, July, and August. Okay, June, July, and August. And then we see design North Node in 32.4 in 1996, March. 1996, March. So it's kind of interesting to see how we are being influenced in this family. And he says that those are the particular beings who are going to really feel this shifting, know this shifting, especially because of their North Node being in 32.3 or 4, especially. So if I think about what 3 and 4 mean to me and understanding what Ra has taught us, we know that the linkage between the two, the relational dynamic, is that's the middle binary couplet, 1 and 2, being total opposites of each other. 3 and 4, total opposites. 5 and 6, total opposites, but they are a binary couplet, as in here in the middle, it's the binary shift field, the most volatile or unstable area of the hexagram structure, the line of 6. So we're looking at the 32.3, lack of continuity. We're looking at the mutative effect of what it is to be 3. And that is, by its very nature, incredibly not volatile in the sense of emotionality, but variable, we can say. Yeah, this capability of catch and release, my mindset, as far as the connective field between things and between life and the physicality. It's where the Maya happens to be, the material plane, 3rd line, this game. And then we see the 4th line being not like the 3 at all. It is incredibly rigid. Yeah, remember, it was about principles. It was about the capability of instinct being expressed. So Ra describes, now we link that awareness to the design North Node as an access point for your personality influence through the principle of what is called link nodes. Okay, link nodes. I'm going to point to where they are being pulled together or linked. That is in gate 2. No matter whether you have a planet opening up gate 2 or not, your own body graph, the North Node on the design side, the South Node on the personality side, this is the place where everything connects, where the magnetic monopole that pulls me to me and you to you is indeed connecting your conscious personality with your design your physical form, your body. This is the only place that your database connects together, link nodes. Okay, so link this concept, link nodes. This is the link nodes, your north node and your south node. Ross says that stars, these data streams, how wonderful it is that we have nodes. I am so enthralled. It is the only word I can use with the wonder of what the nodes are, the magic of them. It took me 20 years, I guess that's the best way to say it, to get to a place of completion of my own synthesis process, synthesizing all of this information. The very heart of it, in terms of the way in which the illusion works and the illusion of our life, it's all based on the nodes. So it is what gives us life. It is what gives our form its interactive potential with the environment, which is life. It aligns us to the trajectory that allows us to move with minimum resistance, so that it can enhance the quality of the life. It determines the very foundation upon which the mind will work, because it establishes the perspective, what we are here in this life to see, to experience, to meet, to grasp, to touch, to rub against. It's all there in the nodes. So physically, what I want you to remember especially is that the physical body, this is a place in space, whereas the personality is how we see as we walk along this place in space in our apparent reality. So oftentimes, because these are nodal oppositions in the wheel, you can actually really rub up against physically people who have either these nodes, you're walking the same path, or karmically, there's a connective linkage between you and the other if they happen to have the sun, earth in the exact line according to this human design system. So it is a karmic linkage, a direct karmic link. And the nodes are our keys to geometry, trajectory, and alignment. So geometry is our movement along this path in space, our movement, our line of geometry. Trajectory is the way in which we are experiencing what happens to be the way that we see and where we be, linking us, our personality mind, to the body. So Ross says that these nodes are everything, and yet there's nothing there. There's nothing. There's no planets. There's no filtering, not in the same way that there is when we talk about planets. So in human design, normally you see the linkages, the databases. Let me use the right term here. Normally in human design, we see that there is a database on either side that has an equality to the way in which we are seeing those gates and lines. And yet they are not equal, not by a mile, even personality to body. The form dominates. The form has greater weight. I mean, physically, doesn't it? You know, it physically has more weight because the body is the life. It is the life process. And when you experiment with your decision-making strategy, honoring your body or your process as your own authority. If you have no inner authority, you have a process of authority. Everybody has their own authority or access to being their own authority. Once you experiment with that and see, what happens is that there's a shifting. There is a definite change to the way in which your frequency is showing up. And the way that that frequency shows up is that the monopole, the singularly pulling magnet, has the capability of holding your body and your mind more cleanly. Now, the mind is always going to have this process of duality, this and that. It is ma, mind to measure, the Maya. Okay, so it's always going to have this back and forth awareness principle, as well as its motivational frequency on the personality. That's how rave psychology works. There's always this and that. But when you come to the awareness of being your own authority, and you can, if you stick with it, and you experiment, you can see, poke your head through the sky and disengage the ego eye and be able to see, witness, be passenger consciousness. Once that happens, your frequency changes, it shifts. And when you get the frequency right, you're more likely to be able to be held consistently within the framework of the fundamental nature of your own reality in this capability of being your own authority. It is a mechanical truth that you can experiment, validate, test, and see. You don't have to believe Ra or me. And your stellar alignment is found through this design north node. It is the path that you're walking towards in this movement through space and time, physically. So they're nothing and yet everything. They're beautiful, aren't they? Ross says, if you have a sense of humor, nothing, nothing. And that's what makes it so sweet. They're not like Mars or Jupiter. They're not these objects. Now, these objects down here, see how small they happen to be? Think nuances and subtleties, accents. They are not the focus of the mind's process, nor the drive of the form principle, moon. They are not the grounding of one's personal awareness, nor the physical process of what it is to be incarnate as consciousness embodied in this present form, the binary consciousness of what it is to be a nine-centered human. So these objects that are filtering are actual bodies, celestial bodies. When you look at the planets, with the nodes, it's something else. They are not changing it. My mind says focusing in a direction or in a perspective and awareness. It's coloring the sea of the cosmic soup in your reality, as far as it's altering the information through our relationship to it. It's this frequency field touching us with the nature of whatever it happens to be that it's bringing into the fore of our reality. So if there is a planet there, pay attention. If there is a planet in the nodes, this is something that absolutely filters and affects your place in space, the body, or your personality, your awareness. And some people would teach that it is also a karmic influence, a karmic configuration of something. Let's say, as an example, you've got a planet that is in the south node conjunct. Then that would be something that is potentially, mind you, don't know for certain, but what I've heard from learning from other teachers is that it can bring forth something karmically from your past into this current reality. On the body side, the way that I would explain that would be it's a genetic lineage, an inheritance from your physical genetic ancestral DNA. The personality, I would say it's more of the soul's imprinting, your current blueprint, because the soul imprinting is always new. This base is always the same, but everything else changes because we are all movement, spiraling space and time. It's always changing. So touching us with the flavor of this or that planet, depending on these frequency fields vibrating, as we too vibrating along through the dynamics of being incarnate, embodied in flesh. So if you look at your design and you see that there's those two holes in the sky, you could say, where it's an umbilical cord and also an escape tunnel. The Vedics would say that it's absolutely part of the karma as far as their awareness of these portals. And there's a whole story on Rahu and Ketu. You can Google if you want to see what that happens to be. Ra gave them great weight for having the awareness of these particular points in space. So your connectivity to the all that is happens through back in time and forward into the future through these nodes. It's an incredible place to be as far as the awareness of your fundamental nature, of your own reality, on the physicality, as you're seeing, witnessing personality, aware of where you be. Okay, so I rhyme things in order to help it stick. I say this is where you be physically, and this is how you see where you be. And that is the thing that's helped me so much differentiate in order to not only do my work, but also be aware personally and of my family, friends, what have you. It is through these nodes of the moon, portals in space, that our magnetic monopole does its job. They are the instruments in holding us together in the illusion of our separateness from the totality, yeah, in this reality. It shapes us and gives us our range and moves us along our line of geometry. It's all about movement as far as physically. And then what do we see? What is our awareness as we walk along this path and in this trajectory? For Ra, it was obvious that the nodes represent the centralizing force upon which life was built. And it is in this alignment of form in movement where we find we live our lives. So if you think of your incarnation cross as the eye of your life's purpose, where you live that is on a road, a path and trajectory where it is about we, because this is your connective field, not only of you with yourself, but also to everything that seems to be around you. In truth, it's all inside of you too, in addition to. So these represent the alignment of the we, of us in our form relationally to the outside world. So we see the shifting, shaping, molding of the form, the alignment of being a product of our environment. The environment is here, okay, on the physical body side, part of variables and radical transformations, if you want to learn more about environmental context, or where there is least resistance to the body in order to affect your longevity, the physical resonance that you have to a place in space as you're walking along this path in this trajectory. So all of this is in the nodes, physicality, and then the mental identity, as in your perspective of how do we see? And seeing, it is the whole movie. How do you see in this reality? This is the way that we can have a benefit to the we outside, not just ourselves, but also to the outside world. True, we're seeing the capability of being an outer authority. So outer authority simply means a unique, differentiated perspective given to an other without an agenda, as in, and if you're a projector, wide split like me, anything to do with the nature of your reality, having to do with awareness of the other, okay, especially, but projectors are the deepest like this, who is the other. You know what happens when you believe your mind, the ego I that lies, and you attempt to communicate from such a place of not self, as in, gimme, I want that, you know, do this for me, or let me do this for you kind of energy, which is a quick path to bitterness. Or for you, if you're not a projector, whatever your frequency of being out of integrity with one's sovereign nature of being. In other words, the not self-purpose, the resistance of anger, frustration, bitterness, disappointment. So when you're thinking about how the life is influenced, I want you to remember the nodes. The nodes are incredibly important and a big part of our practice if we were doing this professionally. For your self-study, incredible to see. So there is something that Ra was exploring in the history of geometry and in the PHS, primary health system, and Rave Psychology programs. It was in the lunar and planetary color analysis books if you want to look into it, that the unusualness of the nodes because of the base orientation is something that he explored. Now, base, when you look at a classic human design chart, you'll see it in a tiny little square, okay, base. Your personality base orientation is eternal. It does not change. Personality sun, earth, base orientation is always going to be eternal. And then the body is always going to be one step behind. That has a relational dynamic to where, again, you be, how you see in crafting the nature of the illusion in your reality. So here's the square, okay, the personality base orientation. And you'll see a little number inside of the square that shows you next to your sun, earth, of what your eternal nature of being is. So the unusualness of the nodes is that, again, the north node is called the design link node. Okay, that's where your fixed star is, and that it's going to connect to your personality view. So watch how these energetic blueprints shift over to the relational field. The north node not only has that link node function, but it's also about learning or figuring out, besides your star, you look at the north node and you look at the link node and you see the relational variability between the two. I'm not going to go into all of that right now because Ra didn't want to, but it has to do with the relational field. So if we look back at the link node, the personality link node has a resonance to the body, the vehicle, as Ra would call it poetically. And then, and also to get us to the sense of, hey, your personality is just a witness, it's not the driver. Yes, your mind can influence, as in when you're not self, you can get yourself off track. And the signpost of that is frustration, anger, bitterness, disappointment. When you're on track, you get the signature of the spirit, the abundance of spirit, that is a signpost of you being on track. Success, satisfaction, peace, surprise. So the design link node has an inherent receptivity to the personality. And in personality resonance, what we're looking at when we put it together with the personality link node on the other side, okay, so we're looking at personality base 3, design link node has an inherent receptivity to that personality. On the design base side, we're looking at the personality link node having a resonance to the vehicle. So we're looking at the way these two aspects function together within the holistic nature of the whole, and it's something that's studied in the advanced mechanics of human design. For our purposes here, we are only going to focus on the design link node because of its inherent receptivity to the personality. So personality influence is what stars represent according to Ra, personality influence. So in other words, if you're going to draw in transiting stellar activation, even though they transit quite slowly, in a transit, let's say we color them in black, and this is something that the personality has access to because of the receptivity of the design link node to this personality construct that we live in. So when we have an awareness of this, a lot of things start to fall into place, we'll say, because you can have an awareness of it. Normally, on the body side, we always say, this is the thing, according to Ra, this is something you have no access to, right? Your physicality. This is something other people see in you, or you broadcast unawares. Whereas here in the north node, so where's your north node? For me, it's 28.2, game player, risk taker. Yeah, shaking hands with the devil. This is the thing that this mind can bring as an awareness because of the resonance of the personality base orientation and the receptivity to the personality through the design link node. So the personality cannot change the trajectory of the life. Some things are genetically hardwired. Now, your personality can absolutely be influenced by the awareness of all of this conditioning. And the danger is when you believe the conditioning as I. So to bring it back to practicality, as a human being who was told experiment, one of my primary teachers in human design, the person I got all my readings from, Becky Markley, she had a defined throat awareness, okay, as far as her wavelength. And she also had a defined heart to G, but those two were separate. And even her, she said, she stopped initiating with her family. She stopped initiating talking. And because I followed suit, as in I experimented too with what is it like to stop initiating conversation. The person I was with all the time happened to be my current husband. And when I stopped talking, I could clearly see my mind screaming at me to try and influence his decisions so that I could be safe, so that we could be something, whatever it was that my mind wanted to be. So if you experiment clearly with your awareness of what your mind is saying versus what is correct for the body to say, be, do, this is the thing that's going to break you free from believing the ego I that lies. My personality ego I could see it lie. Still does, but I can see through the lie. So this is the thing that I really want for each of you to be able to see. Do not try to meddle, but just step back and witness what it is to be physically in this body, your own authority. Because the conditioning, the transits, the people that you're with, they are not you, but they influence you through and through. It does, it happens. You cannot unsee it once you study and you see. Trajectory as far as the path, the place and space that you happen to be, you carry this environment and this way of seeing everywhere that you go. Everywhere you be, you carry your nodes. They go with you. It's not a physical, like, oh, I have to go and live in China on the top of a mountain in a cave, if you're a caves person or whatever it happens to be, you know? It is not about that. It is about being embodied here and now and witness to the reality within and without around you, which is a reflection of you inside. So we know that if you are believing the ego I that lies, the mind inside, that life is going to shift for you in the negative, as in the disastrous danger of believing the lie of the mind, the personality only. And where do we get conditioning? In a single definition, obviously, it's going to be the centers. So hurry up, get everything done in order to avoid confrontation and truth, to be able to have the doubts be driving you is absolutely the foundation for Ra's angry making. So by experimenting with your own formulae, whatever you happen to be, you can see these things. And then what happens? You know that trip, you know that movie. You let go of trying to force or push whatever the not self mind is screaming at you inside of you that it thinks is true. So we're going to see that one of the ways that the linking system, this nodal linking system, remember North Node and South Node, because they are linking your self with self, I of who you think you are, with the physicality of the body, we're going to see how this connective field changes our relationship to ourself the longer that we experiment. The more that you experiment with being your own authority, the more the frequency calms and settles down, as in, there's no more turning yourself around. And my mind is linking to self-sabotaging that happens to be part of the old nature of this physicality in the nature of the mind running the show. So what we're looking at here is something that is a very advanced area of design. Please don't think that you have to understand how it all works or try to do this work with other people if you're happening to be in the analysis training program. For more information like this, it's in higher levels of analysis, the differentiation degree program would be one of the places that you can go if you're not one of those self-studiers. So what we're looking at is the ways that this linking system, the nodal linking system, breaks down when you're not operating in alignment. It doesn't, the gate 2, whether you have a planet or not, cannot hold you to you with the correct frequency. So if you're not being your own authority, you don't have the capability of seeing things clearly. Your perspective is always skewed. We call that distraction. And your personality awareness is always distorted. We call that transference, okay, on the personality side. Now, the personality is always going to transfer. It is a fundamental nature of what it is to be human, but you're not going to be there all the time or stagnant and stuck in it. It's a counterpoint to your view. It makes life interesting, but it's not the place of one's authoritative principle. It is simply seeing and then being aware. So of what is there or not there, the distraction, the distortion, the irrelevance of whatever it is the mind is pondering and spinning and cycling and trying to figure out. You can just go, I'm distracted. I'm transferred. Deep breath, this too shall pass. Watch it. It's a great movie, a great trip to be able to watch it rather than attempt to do something about it, which is the danger and is always going to lead you down that path of frustration, anger, bitterness, disappointment, resistance, speaking from the nature of the frequencies of your not self. It's always going to speak with that voice. So that's how you bear witness to it and see through that view, that distorted view. So here we're looking at the potential of a star, to bring it back to present, being aligned to what is an influence in your life. The body, physicality, again, is the life. So the link node is the life being open to the personality's influence, which is part of the nature of what it is to be a binary consciousness, binary consciousness in a physicality form. So Ra would use his node as an example here. We're looking at Delta Eridani as his own example. The generational groupings of stellar imprinting are absolutely real that you can see, bear witness to, part of your being. Those who are born with the same nodal activations share that star family, a group experiencing the same path of the evolutionary influence of distance as you move through your life process, because North Node is always a process of moving towards something. Future direction is another way we can say that. So link the term North Node with future direction. Ra brought human design forth for the new era. Rahu, for the new. Okay, link that to future. Here with Delta Eridani, specifically love of knowledge, science, much travel, many changes, position of authority, accidents at sea, and drowning as a potential. So where does this information come from? Laveena, tell me about my fixed star. You may not have one of the fixed stars that we're going over in this particular class. All you do, go research, go ask. Yeah, find your books, look into whatever resources. The one that I recommend again, Bernadette Brady, Fixed Stars. So to reiterate the process again that I gave to you at the beginning of this course is looking for your design link node, the North Node, and you're going to find that positioning and you're going to look and see what it happens to be. Okay, what it happens to be. This star being Ra-Na. Isn't that interesting? Him relabeling himself to Rahu, that star being Rana. Okay, so we know then that these stellar influences, here's the one from Ra's family of Rana, Delta Eridani, is that right? Just double checking. Eridani, Delta Eridani, Rana. We're looking at 1947 to 48, and then That was from December to May, 1966, October, November, 85, April, May, June, 2003 to 4. We're looking at November all the way through April. So Ross says about this one, Delta Eridani family, and for all the star freaks and alien freaks, I think it would be delightful to find out what stellar family you belong to. This is my Delta Eridani, and I assume there are many other Delta Eridanis. It's generational. After all, when he taught this, he was 59. So there's quite a few 18-year cycles in there that we can see now, according to the beauty and wonderment of what it is to be on this path of the cyclical reality. So there are other members of Ra's clan. You might happen to be with them. New generations that are continually influenced by that particular star, that being part of that star family. So this is a very logical, visual way of seeing that imprinting. And I look forward to hearing what you recognize about this. So Ross said he thought that any 23.3 North Node who was 18 or 37 years younger than him can gain an enormous advantage just by being in his aura, the same way that he can get a lot of inspiration, vitality from them. But there is something obviously that they carry that links them in such a deep way. They're on the same path. They're living in accordance with the same frequency of this embodiment principle. So from his various early teachings, he taught people that if you have nodal connections to sun-earth connections, that is, you or the other person to them, or they to you, that your nodes are reversed, or your nodes are reversed. So it can be, this is an example, nodes are reversed, you can see as far as the connective field, right? You can see that these are the same. So it doesn't matter whether it's conscious or design, as long as it's the same line, not to mention gate, of course. Gate goes without saying, but same line accordingly. So you have this special connection between the two of you. If you've ever met somebody that has that kind of connection, you know what I mean. Because anything dealing with the nodes is dealing with the movement of your life force, okay? Physical movement, place and space. And oh, here's a person who embodies that place. So it's an instant, to my mind, the experience was an instant feeling of recognition. I can still remember the first time I looked into this lover's eyes that I had that kind of connection with. Even though he's dead and gone for a long time, we haven't seen each other in person. Still feeling that principle, resonance, awareness of what it is to be connected up in that field of consciousness. There's a very special connection that you have with these people, because anything dealing with the nodes of the moon is movement of your life force, the history, literally, of your physical geometry. So anything relative to your nodes is bringing forces into your life. If you have these kind of alignments, would love to hear what it happens to be for you or what your experience happens to be. If you do want to hear mine, I'm happy to share an article, more like a long story, or short story actually, about that particular man, connected field. So last piece, what Ra wants to leave us with in today's class was not just being able to look and see your membership to a stellar family, because he thought that was something that was really interesting. But again, to try and get you a feel for the depth of what the nodes represent for all of us. And my hope is, in my aim to help you know yourself truly, that my personal experiences helped to enrich or inspire your own awareness. So your generation, what that means for your generation, Ross says, and the generations that carry that, it's just another way of looking at how beautiful this Maya is constructed, how deeply woven it all is. And I would say all of us interweaving with each other, grand tapestry of life. He says, and yet at the same time follows basically always the same laws. It's quite a thing to see, and it's nice to share it with all of you.